Over the last few years, I've realized that many don't really know what economics is and tend to assume things based on the sentences the word is used in. Some think that is the same as finance, where it is all about money and coins, while the others think that it is about stock markets and how businesses run. Sadly, neither of those two descriptions is correct. But I'm afraid I also learned that among those who actually spend time learning the subject, do not have a clue what economics is after having coiled themselves in a long thread of mathematical formulas and graphs. Why do I put it that way? Because look at them, calling economics a science. This has led to many economic theories being treated as gospels and therefore set in stone. And the policies that arrive from these unverified theories have often always proven to be disastrous. But many haven't even realized that this is happening because they often tend to leave economics to the experts. But there aren't any experts, you see, and that is what I'm here to tell you and convince you that it is important for you to understand basic economics, for it governs your entire life. And this is not just me telling you this. Let me take you back to 2015, January, when an interesting incident took place. A group of 9 students showed up at the Boston Sheraton Hotel to protest against the American Economic Association. They plastered accusatory posters all over the hotel walls and even hijacked the question time during the panel discussion. They distributed leaflets that read, "On campus, after campus, we will chase you old goats out of power. Then in the months and years that follow, we will begin the work of reprogramming the doomsday machine." These were a group of students of economics, frustrated with the absurdly narrow assumptions of the economic theories and models that they were being taught, that could possibly be solved only if the reality of money, labor, and debt that we see these days would be removed. We should agree that even if the current smartest, GDP growth-oriented economists have concerns about the new ideas of economics or those that do not align with theirs, they are more concerned about their reputation among their peers and the friends they have in the government, who may not be very happy with the newfound knowledge of theirs that could possibly disrupt the current economy, or should we say, their system of wealth hoarding. Economics is a discipline that is concerned with the material standard of living of all the people in its society and the consequences it will have to face because of the decisions taken to govern and improve the standard of living. Now, the consequences must not be looked at through a short-term purview, you might also agree. It is very important for us to assess the long-term effects of our economic decisions. Lionel Robbins, a British economist, said, "Economics is a study of the use of scarce resources which have alternative uses." Now let's talk about the guy who proved that he can run an engine with only water. No petrol, no diesel required. But we'll be walking into the realm of conspiracy theories. But bear with me. This isn't about the conspiracy. It's about a point I'm trying to prove with this story. So there was this guy by the name Stanley Myers who built a perpetual motion machine, a water fuel cell, meaning a car that ran on water instead of fuel. He proved that it works by driving his car all the way to the other end of the country. And he also managed to get a patent on his design after the board reviewed it and found it to work just fine. Now there's heavy skepticism that this isn't true and that it's a useless of an invention. But who cares? I sure don't. What I really want to point is that as soon as he celebrated the closing of his first deal by taking a sip of the cranberry juice while dining with his investor guests, he rushed outside holding his throat and violently puking. He said they poisoned him, but the reports say it was cerebral aneurysm. Is it true or a hoax? There's no way to tell now. But the point is, oil is a non-renewable resource, as much as my master's degree classmate from Dubai would refuse to agree. That means oil is a scarce resource. People who run large oil companies practically run our economies, because look at all the places you use oil. You cannot get to work without it because your car has it, your cosmetics have it, your medicines have it, your food has it. It is the carbon of our lives. So if you come up to a person who, by the way, is accused of instigating most of the wars and profiting off of them, and tell them transportation is possible by water, no need of oil anymore. He or she will hear you say, eliminate oil altogether, and let the economy of literally the whole world come crashing down to a halt. So they will choose elimination like you asked. Not of oil though, but of you. Why is it so? As much as you might want to start using water to fuel your journey to work tomorrow, you might not have a job at all if they replaced a scarce resource with something that makes up 70% of this planet. That means you might not have food on the table at all. That means you will no longer taking a moment of silence to commemorate the times of Great Depression or famine. You will be living it. In the 18th century, Adam Smith, the founder of modern economics, said that the government should not interfere in the economy and let the private buyers and sellers do their jobs engaging in competition. But you see what's happening these days? The very private sellers that he talks about are aggressively interfering in the government's actions. Let me give you a reality check about the world that you are surrounded by today, which is obviously governed by the great economic thinkers of today, who some people would agree are much more thorough with how to run an economy than their olden age predecessors, after having seen crashes, crises and pandemics over the last 300 years, ever since Adam Smith fathered economics. We are in 2023 and the debt bubble is about to burst, with global debt being at $300 trillion and growing. If you do not know what that means, it means that we have all collectively taken up so much debt that nobody can ever pay it off. If that happens, the economy collapses, which means that all of the money that you've saved till date and all of that you've invested will be just as valuable as £2 of today or £5 at the max, like it is in Zimbabwe. 1 in every 4 children do not have enough food to eat, and their food lacks nutrients. Anyone who has once paid attention in school can tell how adversely it affects their growth and health, and how easily can they become a victim of early death. Half the world is living in poverty today. This isn't an exaggeration. The World Bank reported that 1 in every 2 people is living on £5 a day or under. If you haven't watched my most video on unionizing, then you have to give it a watch to get a clearer picture of what I'm trying to say, because let's now talk about the wealthiest people on this planet. Imagine this world. Now imagine people living in it. Now, the income of all of these people put together must be a really big sum, don't you think? Because we have way too many number of billionaires now than we had before. Now imagine all of that money put together and multiplied by 2. That is the amount of money that the richest 1% have accumulated for themselves in the last 2 years alone. Ever since the pandemic, I mean. Look, the economics of today is clearly absurdly narrow in its assumptions. Otherwise, why else is half the population of this planet living in near abject poverty, with people having full-time jobs or even 2 jobs, but surviving on food banks, while the richest 1% of the entire 8 billion population is hoarding money, while turning a blind eye to child labor, slave labor, and the modern forms of exploitation such as laying off workers without prior notice, or paying them wages that is significantly lesser or lower than the inflation rate. And oh, what have they done to planet Earth? Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk have openly said out loud that we need to make Mars habitable, because planet Earth is becoming more and more inhabitable. Who do you think is contributing to such inhabitable conditions? Pardon me, I get carried away sometimes. Economics is not science as much as Sweden's central bank tried to make it one by money laundering and making Nobel Prize for Economics a thing. You cannot test economic theories and principles in a contained environment as you can for science experiments before actually implementing them. Nor are economic principles laws of nature as laws of physics are. If it were in any case, then why are your predictions of economic phenomena almost always wrong? Economists have largely failed to draw out correct consequences of their instructed policies, and most of the time, these policies are not one size fits all. because people and resources are diverse. What works in Texas of the United States will not work in Auckland of New Zealand, which is why New Zealand has decided to walk away from using GDP as their measure of progress. Unlike other countries, it has been nearly 300 years ever since the Wealth of Nations was first penned. And this century began a little over 20 years ago. But the 1995 you will not recognize the 2022 you and your world. So then tell me, the ideas of a book that was written 300 years ago, or even the one that was written 100 years ago, apply efficiently to help every single one of us? Analyzing prices, wages, profits, trade, from the standpoint of how our economic decisions affect the allocation of scarce resources in the way that raises or lowers the material standard of living of the people as a whole is important. But what we are seeing is that these outdated theories are permitting a world where extreme poverty persists while the wealth of the super rich grows year after year. And when students are taught this philosophy and let out into the world as economists, you should realize that it not only impacts your life alone, it impacts the lives of everyone else on this planet, because they are the new policymakers. Continuing this disastrous cycle of power games and blocking economic revisions. This is why it is important to rethink economics, and all you have to do is subscribe to my channel and I will walk you through it one video at a time. And no, I am not contradicting what I said before. I am not an expert. All I'm going to do is explain economics to you as if you are a 5-year-old, and you decide whether or not the new economic policies that are being introduced in your country is correct or wrong according to your national circumstances. That is all we need. In a way, we are in this mess because we've been throwing our hands up in the air and saying, I do not understand economics, and letting the crooks get away with making us believe ideologies that only serve them. One voice may not hold the power to change things, but understand this. The environmentally friendly or environmentally sustainable business practices and government policies that we see today have come about because a larger number of people are talking about it, and the increased public scrutiny has made it happen. All we need to do is stay informed and share this idea, and you can do that by subscribing to my channel and sharing the video.